There's this channel. I know it sounds weird. They're a bunch of pickup artists, but they talk a lot about self-development, right? There's this video of them talking about self-amusement, and one of them said something that really caught my ear. I'll link it in the description. So you're doing your thing, and you see a guy who's well-groomed, going to night school, and getting all the girls. So then you go, okay, he's well-groomed, he has a nice education, that's what gets the girls. Then you see a bartender, and you're like, oh, never mind, this gets the girls. He said what you're doing is you are chasing a phantom. You start chasing something with what seems like no end. But the further you run toward that phantom, the further you run away from yourself. The lazy bartender guy, that's his strength. The well-groomed, educated guy, that's his strength. They leverage their strengths. Those are what get them all that attention. These little rappers, these young artists who seem to climb to the top so quickly, out of nowhere, what are their strengths? I see a lot of old heads discuss this and say, oh yeah, you need a face tattoo, you need rainbow hair, you need a stupid name, you need metal in your teeth, you need to do a bunch of drugs. I don't think those are their strengths. I think those are just subtle reflections of their strengths. And I think their strengths are subtle reflections of what they represent as entities, entertainers, and brands, which is a combination of youth, fearlessness, and fun. What generation of teenagers wasn't rebellious against the status quo? What, because these ones are just a little bit more questionable than the others that didn't have their potential shock value and coverage on social media? It's easy to put so many labels on them. What about Joyner Lucas? What about Kemba? How about NF? What about Token? Look, these guys may not have the catchiest, happiest, most rebellious songs of this era, this new period, but if you enjoy them the way they are and they just start dropping songs like that out of nowhere, you're probably not gonna feel the same way about them. Unless you're like me and you like everything. A lot of this shit seems to be about just authenticity, but I feel like maybe it goes a little bit deeper than that. But authenticity is what tends to build trust and credibility. And credibility, I mean, if you look at the history of hip-hop, seems kind of like the kryptonite for so many artists, because that's where it hurts. But like, everyone has a lane. Some lanes are maybe similar to others, however, they are just looking for guidance. Eventually, they break off. They go into their own thing. And then some people follow their lane until they break off and do their own thing, and so on and so forth. People like having options. No one really likes to just listen to one artist, but people are always going to have one artist who really stands out to them. One or two or three, and maybe a handful of other ones. And in their minds, those artists don't chase phantoms. They just look inside and have their inner selves. But there are exceptions to every rule. Some artists will find other ones like Drake or Cardi B and be like, no, they're not real, they're fake. What does that even mean, bro? How can a rapper be fake? Why? Because they have someone else write their songs? Because they have a persona? Some artists like expressing themselves through other means. How much of a necessity is it that they express their true selves exclusively anyway? Are they deliberately trying constantly to be something that they're not? Or are they genuinely trying to entertain a targeted crowd? And if your answer is the former, is it that much worse if they have at least one album that changed the way people look at modern hip-hop? Look at Eminem. Look at Tyler, the Creator. Look at Captain Murphy. The song Stand by Eminem wasn't even a true story. I said this to an artist once, and the artist was like, yeah, but you can still feel the message. And I totally agree. I do, but you could hear something like Marvin's Room by Drake and feel like you were there in the room with him, sobbing, feeling his pain. I'm not saying it's any better, but I'm not saying it's any worse, because with the success of those songs, considering the track records of those artists, if you hear the song and dislike it, at this point, it's at that subjective level of almost undeniable self-expression that if you don't like it, it's probably because you don't personally resonate with it and its message, or it's just not your preference. There's a book that seems to be quite popular in rap. I know Kanye, Jay-Z, and Drake each referenced it at some point in their lyrics. It's called The 48 Laws of Power. It's literally a very powerful book. These are 48 means of creating, using, cultivating, and bending power. People think for some reason this book is written exclusively for sociopaths who want to rule the world. It's not. It's written for people who want power, but also people who don't want to be powerless. It's not immoral, it's amoral. This book you can read and apply any of the knowledge you want in any way you want. Anyway, the 25th law is to recreate yourself. The author wrote, do not accept the roles that society foists on you. I don't know what the fuck foist means. Recreate yourself by forging a new identity, one that commands attention and never bores the audience. Be the master of your own image rather than letting others define it for you. Incorporate dramatic devices into your own public gestures and actions. Your power will be enhanced and your character will seem larger than life. Would you say that someone who does this needs a ghostwriter or needs no ghostwriter? Would you say that someone who does this needs to learn about and understand other personas and their approaches to self-expression, or needs not to? In the music video for God's Plan, Drake walks around and just gives people money and shit. Like, all of a sudden, it's this new thing for him to stick to. Like, everybody knows him as a philanthropist now. But Bill Gates could have done the exact same thing, but just in his own situation. And the only reason his video would go viral is the fact that he's not a rapper. And in that case, it would just be his big breakout single. In Nice for What, Drake is all of a sudden this sort of feminist cheerleader who gasses girls up for being themselves on social media, stressing the importance of work-life balance, staying social, moving on from unhealthy relationships, taking care of yourself. How many songs has he really dedicated to just a subject like that? It's like every new single of his, in 2018 at least, is some new means of self-expression, some new persona, some recreation. This is something Pusha T hammered him on in the Story of Adidon, you know, the spider joint. Drake is just applying this law of power in a way that perhaps degrades what's generally accepted in the underground hip-hop community. Drake does this as often as we let him. And the only reason we continue to let him is that we can't seem to stop it. And every time you see this happening and you can't seem to stand it, it is a choice to speak up rather than go the other route and focus more on yourself than what's around you. Regardless of the reason, reason for which you do either. So that's my take on chasing phantoms. What do you guys think? What am I missing? Please let me know in the comments below. If you have any questions, please feel free to hit me up. There are links at the bottom of the description to all my social media. Make sure to leave a like if you like it, subscribe if you haven't already. If you could hit that little bell to receive a notification every time I drop a new video, that would mean the world to me. You guys can find me everywhere, and I will see you then.